What's up, guys? So I've been doing a lot of videos with like my top 20s, my top 15 players, my top teams in the Overwatch League. I'm getting a lot of feedback, people asking what about specific roles, can you do like top tanks in the Overwatch League, stuff like that. And then as well as on my top 20 list and my XQC videos, I've been getting a lot of questions like how come XQC isn't on this list? Why don't you have him in your top 20? He's one of the best tanks in the world. Where do I think he stacks up against the rest of the tanks in the Overwatch League? So I thought I'd do like a mixture of a video where I rank the tanks in the Overwatch League, as well as throw my opinion on XQC and where I think he belongs and where he stands compared to the rest of the tanks in the league. And before we get into this video too, real quick, I want to make sure everybody understands the point of these videos is not to shed a bad light on like XQC or anyone else I mention. I make these videos so I can provide insight with my perspective to things from the pro scene that the general public might not know. And as for XQC, the reason I put those screenshots in my last video is because I felt it was a very big part of my personal experience with him. If I made that video without mentioning that stuff, it simply would not have been my true experience with him. A lot of you guys were commenting and saying I was salty and jealous that XQC was in the Overwatch League and that I'm just a trash player. Which is fine, I get it. XQC has some loyal fans, and sure, maybe I come off that way. But XQC did earn his way into the league, and I was never trying to take that away from him. I clearly stated at the end of the video that he's 100% good enough to be in the Overwatch League. My point in the video was that if he continues down a path of not caring about this opportunity he has in the league or taking it seriously, he would end up having to either choose to commit full-time to streaming or as a full-time player. There was no mixture of the both that he could do. And as of recently, though, he doesn't seem to be acting up as much and hasn't been sending weird mixed signals on his stream with these messages that he's been saying. So it seems like everything has been going a little bit better for him, which is good. I'm glad. I hope it does. I would love to see him continue stream and do great in the Overwatch. And again, I'm not salty that he's in the league. Maybe it sounds like I'm a little upset or I have a grudge against him. But honestly, dude, guys, me and XQC, we have similar mindsets. When it comes to like competing, we both are extremely passionate. We wear our hearts on our sleeves. You guys see my tweets, man. I might be abrasive at times, but like I say what I mean, and I'm going to compete. I'm going to put it all on the line out there when I'm playing. And XQC is the same exact way, you know. Every time we compete in a match, we're going to put it all on the line, and we're going to either succeed or we're going to die trying to succeed. And I have a lot of respect for him because of this reason. So again, before we get into this video, no animosity towards XQC. But anyways, let's get right into it, guys. So instead of ranking the players with individual numbers this video, I'm going to use a tier system. There will be 3 tiers, with the first tier being the best tanks in the league, and I'll go over my reasons why they're the best. And then I will have a second tier and a third tier. I will reveal a tier at a time, and I will explain my reasoning for each player in that tier, and then explain why XQC is in that tier, or why he isn't, and how he stacks up compared to those players. Okay, kicking it off in tier 1, we have Fisher from the London Spitfire. Then we have Jester, also from London Spitfire. Mano from New York Excelsior. Then Janice, as well as from New York Excelsior. And lastly, Miro from Seoul Dynasty. The reason why most of them are in tier 1 and nobody else is because they just have that pure, hard experience. These guys have all competed in huge matches, live events, and pulled off spectacular plays, proving they are worthy of being one of the best tanks in the entire world. Now, you could bring up a player like Coco and say, hey, well, Coco has played in these huge, big matches as well. But to me, personally, Coco has never came off as like a superstar, someone who just made insane plays. Someone like Miro on the Winston or Janice on the Reinhardt. From all these players, from Fisher, Jester, Mano, Miro, and Janice, they've all played in these huge, high-pressure situations, huge Apex finals. And the reason I put them above the players who have also played in those big, high-pressure situation matches like Coco, because they have proved in these matches that they are a force to be reckoned with, making constant plays left and right that just put them above the other main tanks in the world. Each player in the first tier has proven at one point that they were absolutely insane at their role. So starting off with Fisher. Fisher proved in Season 3 of Apex that he was a force to be reckoned with. All the way up to the finals, he was putting up incredible numbers in comparison to his DPS players like Brascal and Birdring. He was keeping up kill-wise. And in the Apex Season 3 finals, live in the middle of Seoul, Korea, he was able to put up an incredible performance. Despite his team still losing, they went to Game 7, and he played like a beast. And just like Fisher, Jester has also proved himself in these huge matches. From the APAC premiere to the Overwatch Apex Season 4, Jester was a force to be reckoned with. Quite frankly, in these huge tournaments, he walked all over all these big names in this tier 1 list, like Fisher, Mano, and Miro. He just completely outclassed them in Apex Season 4. Looking like one of the best main tanks the game has ever seen. Even though Jester and GC Basan kind of had a shaky start in the preseason, doesn't really matter that much. He's proven himself, and I think he belongs on this list with what he's done recently. Alright, now moving on to Mano, who competed in the World Cup for South Korea. So by the Committee of Korea, Mano was the best tank at the time for them. Now this proves a lot. Maybe he wasn't competing against players like Jester, who at the time weren't a big name, but we know players like Miro were in the mix, who was, I wouldn't say salty, but Miro probably really did want to compete for his country in the World Cup again. So definitely some top tier competition for Mano, and we've seen him play for Africa Freaks, where he was just an absolute beast, especially in Season 3, when Africa Freaks Blue had an incredible run where they went 9-0 in maps in their group stage and then took out Team Envious in the 3rd place match. Mano was an absolute beast in these games, and he completely proved to the world that he was one of the best main tanks. And this season of OGN was probably a big reason why he did get that World Cup spot. Obviously they ran inner scrims and stuff like that, and he proved himself in that regard as well. So Mano definitely belongs in the tier 1 along with these other players. Next, we have Janice from LW Blue. Now, one funny thing about Janice, and what really surprises me as a player, is he played in, I don't know if he still does this because I didn't see him in the preseason, but during OGN Apex, he would always play with his legs on his chair. So his knees would be pushed up against the table, and it would look like he was just relaxing and hanging out, sitting back, playing video games for fun. Being able to sit in that position and still perform at such a high level was honestly pretty surprising. And besides that, he competed with LW Blue. Oh, LW Blue was always a contender for Apex, especially going into Season 3. They looked extremely strong. Many predicted them to be one of the winners. They came to play. Janice was always a strong player. He's definitely proved that he should be in the tier 1 list. In comparison to all the other players in the tier 1 that I listed, I think potentially someone could make an argument for Janice not belonging in this tier with the other players. Maybe he's a little bit on the edge, but I think he belongs in the tier 1. Now what's funny about those past 4 players I listed, they only come from 2 teams. So New York Excelsior and Lund Spitfire, they both have 2 main tanks that are in tier 1. Now I think this is a huge advantage for these 4 players. They're going to push each other, they're going to learn from each other, and they're only going to become better. There's no reason for either of these 4 players to get worse or not learn. So I think once we get like halfway into the league and near the end, I think these 4 players will really shine, and it'll be interesting seeing how London and New York decide to play them. I mean, some teams only have 1 main tank. These teams have 2 world-class main tanks. Now just think about it, guys. The possibilities, it's limitless for them. They can do so many things, and these players are going to improve so much off of each other. And it's definitely going to be something interesting to look at once the league comes full swing. Now lastly, we have Miro. Now of course, I had to include Miro in the tier 1 list. Maybe as of recently, he hasn't looked as good as he has before. He still put up a strong performance in the preseason. And let's be honest, guys, Miro is a staple, especially when it comes to Winston. I mean, this guy invented plays like jumping off the map and killing Faraz. He was one of the first players to ever innovate with Winston. The guy went back to back with Lunatic High, winning Apex Seasons 2 and 3. He's proven in the past he is a world-class main tank, one of the best of all time, and we can't take that away from him. I don't think I could have done a main tank list without putting Miro in tier 1. Now that wraps up my players in the tier 1 list. Now I'll briefly go over why XQC isn't in the tier 1 list. We just have to understand, guys, the experience that these players have is world class. They've competed against the best in the world. A player like XQC, he lacks in experience compared to these guys. Yeah, he's played in some decent sized tournaments. He's never really had the opportunity to compete against world class main tanks in a big stage. Besides getting a little experience at the World Cup, he's never really competed on a really large stage like these guys and proven himself. So for that reason, I can't put XQC in tier 1 along with these players. Now heading into tier 2, we have Fate from the Los Angeles Valiant, Aya Remix from the Los Angeles Gladiators, Muma from the Houston Outlaws, Gamsu from Boston Uprising, Fraggy from the Philadelphia Fusion, Coco from the Dallas Fuel, and last but not least, XQC from the Dallas Fuel. When Fate moved from Korea to play with Immortals in North America, he looked like one of the best main tanks North America has ever seen. I even competed against him in the semifinals of Contenders Season 0, and my god, he was an absolute beast. It was so hard dealing with Fate. He was creating so much space for players like Agilities and Grim Reality to just wreak havoc on DPS. On Congarno, we tried multiple strategies to deal with him, like counter diving or stuffing him or put him in a bad position, and just none of it worked. He seemed to not fall for any of our tricks, and he played his game and he just excelled at it. It was super hard facing him. Yeah, Immortal slumped a little bit in Season 1, and some of it may have been due to him, but it was really hard to tell what the big reason was for Immortals just falling off so hard. But heading into the preseason, Fate looked like an absolute beast, and he's extremely flexible. He can play heroes like Orisa and Roadhog at such a high level as well. I think he's really proved that he's a tier 2 tank. Now heading on to the next player, we have iRemix. Now in my last video when I ranked him at number 9 of Western players, you guys seemed off-put a lot. Now I get it, it comes off as me seeming biased because he's my previous teammate on Congarna, but guys, Remix is a really good player, and for a lot of people you just don't know that, and it's fine because Remix isn't a player that puts himself out there. He doesn't stream, he doesn't have highlights, there's nothing out there about Remix. He plays his game, he shows up, he practices, and he performs. I mean, this guy, he puts in the time. I'll tell you guys this. When we were on Congarna, him and Bishu, outside of like our practice as a team, they would practice together nonstop. They were always in custom games. They were always going over stuff together that could maximize their efficiency and make them better. This guy, Remix, puts in the time, and he shows up. I got a lot of flack in Season 1 contenders for not getting last hits and final blows. And to be honest, it's because Remix was out there collecting them all, man. Like, this guy was on all the targets I was calling every single time, and he was cleaning up those kills when I couldn't. Again, you guys can call me biased for how good I think he is, but he'll just have to prove it to you guys in the regular season. So we'll see. Next, we have Muma from the Houston Outlaws. Like I just said about Remix, Muma also has that drive. I've been watching his stream, reading his tweets lately. This guy is extremely hungry and ready to prove himself as a main tank, especially in comparison to the Koreans. A lot of people are doubting the Western tanks, believing that the Korean tanks are just superior and better in almost every way. And Muma has really got a chip on his shoulder, and he's ready to prove himself. And because of that and his raw skill, I think he's going to be one of the best main tanks in the league. Next, we have Gamsu. Now, Gamsu is an extremely veteran player. He has experience in esports and competing on these big stages, and he just looks like he has a head on his shoulders. He put up a nice performance in the preseason, and always looking like a standout player from Conbox. He definitely belongs in the Tier 2, and can definitely make a push come the regular season for Tier 1. Next, we have Fraggy. Fraggy comes from NIP/Gigante. Now, Fraggy's known for having an aggressive playstyle, especially on the Reinhardt. Now, I used to play against them a lot back in like February and January, and Fraggy would literally just push the pace of the game. He would pressure so hard and just go forward, go forward, go forward. Use his Lucio speed, go forward. Always looking for openings to pin and look for shatters. He was honestly really hard to play against on Reinhardt. With some questions around his Winston, he was still able to put up a pretty decent performance on Winston in Season 1 of Contenders, where Gigante won first place. And in the preseason, we didn't get a chance to see Fraggy, so going into the regular season, he's got a chance to move up into the Tier 1 potentially, so we'll have to see how he performs. Alright, next we have Coco. Now, a lot of you may be saying, well, Coco should be Tier 1 or potentially Tier 1. Yeah, he could be Tier 1, but hear me out. The reason why I didn't put Coco as Tier 1 is because, yes, he plays really well with Envious, and while his Reinhardt and Monkey are both evenly pretty good, he's never really been that crazy player to make those spectacular plays or go out and carry his team. Coco has always been known to just play his role, do his job, and help his team win the game. And for this reason, I think he's in the upper part of Tier 2, and could potentially make a push for Tier 1 if he shows up in the Overwatch League big time and makes some plays and really separates himself from these Tier 2 players. But again, he's just kind of that player. He plays his role, he does it really well, he doesn't do anything crazy, nothing spectacular to make you think he's one of the best main tanks in the entire world. He is good, he's solid, and for that reason, he's Tier 2. Last but not least, we have XQC. Now, I know a lot of you guys would have been pretty upset if I put XQC in Tier 3. And on it, some of you guys might even be upset that he's not in Tier 1. I don't know, potentially. I know he's got some diehard fans. Yes, he's a great streamer. He's a good player. I mean, I put him in Tier 2, so that's a testament to me believing that he's actually good and showing you guys. I put him along with names like Fate, iRemix, Muma, Coco, Gamsu, Fraggy, all players who have proven themselves. And again, like I said, the reason why XQC wasn't in Tier 1 was because he was lacking the experience that those players had. Yes, XQC is a really good tank, and he has proven here and there that he can make those exciting and crazy carry plays that players like Miro can. But again, he's never really had that experience. He's never gotten to play against these Tier 1 tanks honestly hasn't even really competed against many of the tier 2 tanks. Besides getting a little taste at the World Cup in the finals against South Korea, he hasn't had much experience on the stage or against top tier main tanks. So going into the regular season, he's going to have the opportunity to prove me wrong, move up into the tier 1, and show me that, yeah, he is one of the best main tanks in the world. Now, going into tier 3, we have Kuki from Seoul Dynasty, Nami from San Francisco Shock, Numlocked from Los Angeles Valiant, Siwoosh from Florida Mayhem, and Roshan from Shanghai Dragons. Now, before I go into all these players individually, I kind of going to speak for them all as a collective group. Most of them really just haven't had a platform recently or ever to prove themselves. So a lot of them are kind of like unknown and question marks. We don't really know where they lie. Like, who knows? Kuki, from what I'm hearing from the inside, he's a really good player. But he hasn't proved that to all of us. He could be tier 1. Halfway down the season, could be tier 1. We just don't know. He's a question mark. Then we have Nami, someone who hasn't really had the opportunity as of recently to prove themselves. Yeah, he was a good main tank for Immortals, but he never really got that much experience with them. So we don't know. So again, he could easily move up into tier 2 if he has a nice regular season. But from the preseason, you know, decent performance, nothing crazy. So we'll have to see. Next, again, Lumlocked. Recently, he played a little bit with Envision, had some success, nothing major. Before that, he was on NRG, where that was just a whole mess. So you can't really judge an Unlocked. We don't know how good he is. He could be tier 2, could be tier 3. Don't know. His preseason performance was just fine. You know, nothing crazy again. Just like Nami, got a lot to prove. Now Siwoosh. Now maybe a few people could say, yeah, Siwoosh belongs in tier 3. He's new to the role. He has a lot to work on. He's been slowly improving. Definitely need more from him. Again, though, there's not enough information out there. They did get second in Europe, so he's decent. Could be tier 2. We'll have to see how the cards play. And lastly, we have Roshan from Shanghai. Again, another player there's not a lot of information out. He had decent performance against Boston. Nothing crazy again. Just like all these players, none of them did anything spectacular or something that would make me think they're tier 2 right off the bat. And then that paired with them not having a lot of experience or not recently playing a lot kind of made me put them in the tier 3. That being said, guys, these are my tiers. Everybody might not agree with my rankings, which is good. That's fine. I'm glad. If you guys want to debate in the comments, go for it. Let's do it. Let's get into some arguments. I love that stuff. I love replying to comments, especially on Reddit. I always get some good comments on Reddit with people where I can go back and forth, pick each other's brains, see what each other think, stuff like that. It's all fun and games, guys. There's no hate behind any of this. This is just truly my opinion on a lot of these players and how I think they will perform. Also, the giveaway, boys, you know it. We're giving away the Kungarna sweatshirt, giving away snapback Overwatch hat, and an official Overwatch League t-shirt. If you want to win one of those, go to the link down below, enter the giveaway. Good luck on that. And again, if you enjoy the content, guys, be sure to drop a like. Every single like helps. The more likes we get, the more popular the video becomes, the more the channel grows, the more I can work on YouTube. I'm not really doing this full time. I know I've been posting some clips here and there. Like yesterday, I put up a video of XQC playing DPS. I got mixed feedback on it. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I'm experimenting with the channel. I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to figure out what you guys like. As someone who can't put full time into YouTube yet, I'm focused on scrims. I'm focused on real life things, stuff like that. I have a team and all of that. I'm trying to stay active. I'm trying to put in work. I'm just trying to get content out to you guys that you can enjoy. I hear your guys' feedback, and I'm definitely going to improve. Thank you for all that. Be sure to leave more feedback. All it does is help the channel improve, helps me get an understanding for what my viewers like. And the last thing now, we're going to be doing a new series. Are they good enough for the Overwatch League? Should they be in the Overwatch League type of series? So next, I'm thinking about doing Kefri with all the recent drama and him saying he would destroy a lot of people in the Overwatch League. I was thinking of doing an in-depth video about Kefri and whether or not he should be in the Overwatch League or if he is good enough. As well as we could do players like Seagull. I get a lot of mentions about Seagull in my comments. Sure4, Calvin, stuff like that. Let me know what you guys want to see. And again, thank you for watching. Peace, guys.